Wine has been adored for millennia, and it's also been long considered a healthful beverage. Let's explore what history, science, and a little common sense have to say about whether or not wine is actually healthy. Welcome back to the VINVERITY Show. Hello, and thank you for joining me again today for another episode with me, Corky, your certified wine expert. And today we're going to be discussing the potential health benefits of wine. Over the years, we have all heard many claims to the health qualities of wine. But does wine truly deserve the healthful halo? The honest answer is complicated. Not all wine is made the same way, and scientific evidence about alcohol and health is mixed and always evolving. On a spirit note, beyond biology, wine has long been a communal and a cultural good. Shared tables, conversation, and craft. That doesn't make it a medicine, but it does explain why thoughtful wine culture feels life-giving to many. Let's start off with a historical perspective. Ancient Greeks generally saw wine as health-giving when used mindfully as a medicine and a dietary aid, mixed with water at meals and never in excess. A famous Hippocrates text calls wine appropriate to man if administered with appropriate and just measure. Wine also appears in ancient Egyptian tombs and festival contexts, as it was valued for life, vitality, and communion with the divine. Back in medieval times, monasteries believed that their monks lived long lives in part because of their regular wine drinking. Then fast forward to the 1990s when the so-called French paradox was popularized after a 1992 Lancet paper. This was an observation that France long had low coronary heart disease death rates despite their relatively high saturated fat intake. This was popularly but simplistically also attributed to the habitual wine consumption of French people. So, this idea that wine carries healthful benefits isn't new. But today, the vast majority of the wines that most people drink aren't what the monks had in mind. So, the question is wine still healthy, and was it really ever? Let's explore further the myths and truths behind wine and our health. An important factor to consider into this discussion is that not all wine is created equal. Today, there is a massive range from wines made completely naturally all the way to mass-made factory wines riddled with additives. And in between, there's much of a difference in terms of what additives are used and how many, as well as various winemaking measures, which could potentially strip or alter wine of its healthful benefits, for example, reverse osmosis and more. Other factors to consider are the alcohol content, residual sugar, and on the list goes. So, to simply ask, is wine healthy, is really impossible to make a blanket statement in today's wine market. Today in the US, winemakers can legally use over 70 additives in the winemaking process. Some of these are simple, like sugar, tartaric acid, and powdered tannins, where others are more chemical, like defoaming agents, enzymes, and stabilizers, including dimethyl dicarbonate, also known as Velcorin, which must be applied with a hazmat suit, so kind of creepy. These permitted additives or aids are similar worldwide with variation. And then there's the other issue of pesticides and other agricultural sprays used in conventional grape farming. Residues in these conventionally farmed wines can exceed what's permitted in drinking water. But let's not lose sight of the good news. Let's go over what some research over the decades has shown that moderate wine consumption could have some benefits. I've linked various studies for you to peruse on your own, but let's summarize some of these findings. Wine contains antioxidants like resveratrol and ellagic acid, which help fight oxidative stress linked to heart disease and cancer. Studies have also shown that wine can have anti-inflammatory effects associated with reduced risks of cardiovascular disease and even rheumatoid arthritis. And the fermentation process itself makes natural wines part of the same healthy family as sauerkraut and kombucha, foods rich in natural probiotics. However, conventional wines will not contain these due to filtration, various stabilizers, including sulfite additions, and more. Some studies have suggested that protective associations between wine and reduced risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers, as well as neurological disorders. Another study, wine may even make you smarter, or at least help protect your brain. Moderate wine consumption has been linked to reduced inflammation and better clearing of toxins like those associated with Alzheimer's disease. Wine could also support lung health, with one study from the University of Buffalo finding that wine drinkers had the highest levels of protective antioxidants in their blood. For people with type 2 diabetes, both red and white wine has shown improvements in glucose and lipid control compared with drinking water. Now, what about the proposed benefits of red wine versus white wine? Red wine seems to get all of the recognition, but in fact, research has shown that white wine has many of the same health benefits as red wine, even though sometimes lesser. But it also has its own unique health boosting properties that sets it apart. While red is rich in resveratrol thanks to grape skins, white wine may have lower levels, but research shows it can also improve cholesterol, protect the lining of blood vessels, and boost antioxidants in the blood. In fact, one study showed that aged white wine had more heart health benefits that help repair cells that line our blood vessels. In short, the research pertaining to wine health benefits is nuanced and unclear. If you are already a wine lover, take comfort in knowing that there are some recent reports that still see associations for light wine consumption. This often refers to under half a glass to 1 glass a day. However, these study results are not proof of causation, and any benefits noted vanished beyond minimal consumption. And other factors have played greatly into some of these study results. So, is wine healthy? It may have some health benefits in moderation if it's real wine. The kind of wine that monks once believed in, the kind philosophers and poets have praised for centuries. So, I guess the moral of the story is to choose carefully, drink moderately, and let wine be what it always was meant to be: a joy, a cultural treasure, and a healthful part of life. Thanks so much for listening to the VINVERITY Show. Don't forget to subscribe for honest wine education, updates, and invites. Until next time, in wine, there is truth.